All right. Welcome back to the show. I'm Ryan with Code 4 Podcast, and I'm here in studio with my friend, Sergeant Brittany Hubbard. It's a pleasure to have you here. And of course, my co-host, Sal. He just waves. Sal's had a rough morning so far.
I have. It's been terrible.
But this is kind of a follow-up podcast to one of our last podcasts that we did. Sal and I did an episode that we coined Women in Law Enforcement.
Mhm.
Did you even watch it?
I did, and I
Oh.
thought, these are two very qualified experts to talk about women. Found it very interesting.
We actually even discussed it. Man, we
Women.
need a woman's perspective on here.
No, I appreciated the effort, but
Yeah.
I definitely think you needed some expertise.
You think we got it wrong in any facet there?
I think we'd have to go through each point, and I think it's so subjective because everybody's going to have a different opinion. My reality as a female is going to be different than other females, even that I know.
Fair. So I'm going to kind of give you the mic a little bit, just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and so on and so forth. And then we'll get into some questions, and then we'll kind of discuss everything.
Okay. That can be pretty long because like I've
Go ahead.
told you before, I feel like I've lived 25 different lives just at this point. But I'm originally from Detroit and not 8 Mile. No, I know we talked a little bit about that. Not 8 Mile, but I'm from Southwest Detroit. That's where I was born. I have 3 other siblings. One of them has passed away, but I have an older sister and a younger brother. They currently live in South Carolina, but we're very close. Lived in Detroit till I was about 8 years old, then moved to a farm town of 1,200 people, 3 hours north of Michigan. So that was quite a drastic change, and there was a lot of other reasons that we moved. We can kind of get into that in a little bit, but I've always known that being a cop is what I've wanted to do, and I think a lot of my childhood and growing up that plays into it. There's reasons why I wanted to get into this, but as soon as I graduated high school, I went to college and graduated, got my bachelor's degree, and pretty much started where I'm at now. Been here for the last 10 years.
Okay. So you went to Ferris State University, correct?
Yes.
And that's in Big Rapids, Michigan. Or
Yeah.
Is that home for you? Is that close to home?
No. So, like I said, I lived in Detroit and I
Mhm.
moved to this farm town 3 hours north, but I had to commute. So all through college, for one, I never even thought I could go to college. I was like, we're super poor, living in trailer parks, in poverty, had food stamps, all these things, and we moved to this farm town with all of these farmers. And when you live in a farm town, you know that farmers are the wealthy families. So they're the to-do people, they have the money. So you grow up and you see these people and you're like, okay, they're going to go to school. They're going to be a pharmacist. They're going to go to college. They have money. They could do all these things. And I didn't think that was a reality at all. And my older sister, who's like a mom to me, she joined the Army at 17. She's 5 years older than me. And she was really the one that pushed me.
Okay.
She would tell me, like, Brittany, you're so smart. You could be a fucking pilot. I'm like, dude, why would I want to be a pilot? That's insane.
Pilot would be cool though.
It would be cool. But back then, telling a 13, 14-year-old rebellious girl who was getting into fights and doing craziness.
I cannot see that at all.
That they could do anything they wanted. I didn't believe her. But I did. And I filed financial aid and I tried to get student loans and stuff. And once I finally got into this field of criminal justice and started taking classes, I was like, wow, I'm good at this. This comes natural to me.
So was your degree plan always criminal justice, or did it start out as something else?
It actually started out in dental, and that's really only because I was at the dentist all the time. So, I was like, well,
It's got
this
some pearly
seems-
whites.
Yeah.
thanks. My teeth are actually terrible. Naturally, the genetics of them is horrible. This is a facade. They just look nice. They have had cavities upon cavities and root canals and just other issues. So it was dental initially. And I got my clinicals. So I put my first year of college. I did my prereqs, like my math and my science, and I'm terrible at science, but I did enough to squeak through and get into a dental hygiene program. So I said, this is a 3-year program. I could probably afford it. And at that time, I think they were making $60,000, back in 2011. That was a good living, especially in Michigan.
I mean, that'd be a good living now.
I know. So I said, this is something I can do. And I distinctly remember getting a packet in the mail from the dental program. And it was all of these things that you would have to do to be in this program. And it were things like you would have to wear a white lab coat. You couldn't have tattoos. You couldn't wear makeup. They even talked about wearing thong underwear. And I'm like, who are these people that are trying to tell me, what I
Tell me how to live my life?
Yeah, I'm 19 years old.
Did you have tattoos already?
Oh, I started at 18. So I'm like, I got a whole back piece, and I'm like, I'm going to have full sleeves. I'm going to have a motorcycle. And I was in a rebellious stage at 19, and I didn't want anybody telling me what I can and can't do. So my sister's like, why don't you've always wanted to be, I wanted to be a homicide detective. And she's like, you've always wanted to do that. Do it. So I said, okay.
That's a very specific thing that you wanted to be growing up.
Yeah. And most of that stems from, like I said, growing up in Detroit and seeing family and friends, on drugs. And I think by the time I'd moved to northern Michigan, I'd been to maybe eight funerals of just close family
Oh,
members.
wow. Okay.
Just many. And that was a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
My mom is one of 15, so she was born in Puerto Rico. My mom's Puerto
okay.
Rican. So we
Alright.
have a very, very, very vast family.
Yeah.
Cousins upon second cousins, third cousins, just so
Puerto
many.
Rico to Michigan.
I don't know.
There's a huge population of Hispanics in Michigan. Like, it's so
There
crazy.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it
Bunch of my
because of
family.
Motor City?
I think it was just maybe because all the work that was up there originally in
Yeah.
in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's fair.
My family has my dad's one of 14, and then my mom's one of 8.
Man, 14.
Yeah.
And then one
Yeah.
of 15. Good Lord.
Yeah. I know the struggle of what you're going through. It's just like having sisters and brothers.
So you got to kick out like 13 more.
Absolutely not. We already talked about people telling me to do things that I don't want to do, and that's not going to happen. Absolutely not. No, so my mom spent her childhood in Southwest Detroit, and I think they moved out of Puerto Rico. She was the second youngest, and I don't know if after her they were born in Detroit or if after her brother was born they moved to Detroit. But it was pretty quick after that. She spent her whole life Southwest Detroit.
Okay.
And my mom's a scrappy woman. I don't ever recall her working out, but she grew up with a six-pack. Like, I just don't know how that happens. But I saw my mom just growing up kind of with us in the streets, and we'd been to many funerals, and we'd seen many of my aunts, uncles overdose. A lot of them were on crack at that time that I was
I
a
was
kid.
going to ask what the drug of choice is up there.
At that time, I would say in the 90s, early 2000s, I was born in 1990, but in that time, it was a lot of crack cocaine. That's what my aunts used. My mom used it for a period of time. So I think there was also probably a little bit of heroin, but there wasn't like meth. There was at least not in the area of Southwest Detroit. But, I remember you would just hear drive-by shootings. You would hear gunshots all the time. And as a kid, that was natural. It was natural for us to just get on the floor when you hear gunshots as a standard thing, So death, drugs, that was a norm. That was a norm for us. And for me, my sister, my brother growing up. And I think eventually once we moved to that farm town, it was like a shock.
Feel safer?
It did. We had no idea. We didn't know. I walked into an elementary school in 3rd grade and I saw white people. I'd never really seen white people before. It was mostly
The white men.
black and Hispanics that I grew up around. So we walk into this school and I see all these kids wearing like clothes, like normal clothes. We wore uniforms.
Oh, okay.
So I walk into this school.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's normal?
Navy blue, navy blue skirt and pants and a white collar shirt. So we walk into this school and all of these kids are like running around like crazy. It looks like a rainbow in there. There's like bright colors. And it's one of the vivid memories that I have.
A lot of camo?
That was more in high school. That was more in high school. Yeah. And people driving their tractors to school.
Hell
But
yeah.
it was a
Jesus
good
Christ.
time.
Sounds like a good time.
It really was. But that
It's like
was
Flashdance.
Yeah. When we moved it was called Coleman, Michigan. When we moved there, and I distinctly remember being with my mom, and the only reason we moved is she met this man who used to be a Green Beret, and he taught at this Kettering High School in Detroit. And he was part of a Blue Angel motorcycle crew. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many stories, so many different lives that I've lived, but his family lived close by in that small farm town. So he was the one that kind of helped us get to that point, get out of Southwest Detroit. And when we moved, my older brother, who was 18 at the time, he decided that he wanted to stay in Detroit. So it was my 14-year-old sister, me, I'm 8, and my younger brother's 5.
Okay. So you're the second youngest.
Yes, default middle the rest of my life, so that's kind of some character stuff. But when we were only there for a short period of time, it was December of 1998, and I remember my mom getting a call, and we knew every time. It was so norm that every time my mom got a call, we're like, what, who died? That it's just something that happened all the time. So she gets a call and my mom just breaks down. It's somewhere, maybe the 2nd week of December, 3rd week of December. It's getting close to Christmas. And they said that my brother was dead and he had been killed. So we only knew that he'd been shot. I still to this day, I don't know why or what happened, just, kind of what family members have told me because we weren't there anymore. And my mom, she was never the same. So we buried him, I think it was Christmas Eve. And
Mm.
my bio dad, he was a crackhead. So he just, he was kind of off between doing drugs and having a new wife and new kids and stuff. But he did come and it was a whole bunch of drama. But after that, I think that really helped solidify the bond that I had with my siblings, my younger brother, my older sister. So we kind of became what we call the wolf pack, and we really just, looked out for each other since then.
So is this time of year hard for you?
I think it's been so long now that maybe subconsciously, but consciously, I don't think so. I'm 35 now. I think for the first little while, it was very tough. But I also try to look at it that I think my older brother and I have so many similarities. And if I look back at pictures and videos and things, that there's a lot of his spirit in me. So I think that life happens the way that it has to happen. And I don't know that I feel like through what he wanted for me, he has empowered me. So either his spirit, whatever you want to believe, if you believe in religion or God or whatever, I've always just kind of believed that he was there looking out for me, looking out for us. And this was what I was supposed to do, but it was supposed to be through him in some sort of way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. So you went, so all of that happened before you moved to farm country.
Yeah, it was kind of like right at the beginning, and he stayed. He was supposed to come, but he
Right.
didn't.
Were you in farm country when your mom got that call?
Yes.
Oh, that's the link I was trying to make there mentally. Okay. So then you went to college, right?
Mhm.
You were going to be a dental hygienist. Thank God that you're not. You've been a cool dental. I've seen dental hygienists with full sleeve tattoos
Yeah.
before, by the way. I don't think that trend carried on. So what brought you to Clarksville, Tennessee from Michigan?
So I was in that. The reason I chose Ferris State, because living in that farm town, there was nothing close by. So through college, once I started getting grants and student loans and stuff, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to pay for these things. My sister bought me my first car, paid $2,000 for a little Cavalier that the catalytic converter was cut off, so it sounded like a hoss just puttering down,
She's a
and
cheap
she
girl.
was, yeah. But I ended up finding a job at Home Depot, and it was a 30-minute commute, and then an additional 30 to a community college that I started out at. So I started out at a community college, and I was going to just do the 2 years, my prereqs and stuff like that. And so I started that, and I think I was in my second year, and Ferris State ended up making a program where you could attend all 4 years physically at the community college, because Big Rapids was about 3 hours from where I was.
Yeah, I just got Big Rapids because I Googled Ferris State University.
They have it's a huge school. They have a ton of annexes, and it's a really cool program. So they said, you can specifically for criminal justice, you pay Big Rapids tuition because they're still getting theirs, where you're going to have Big Rapids professors from Ferris State, but you physically are going to be able to attend Delta, which is commutable. It was 60 minutes, So
Yeah.
I was commuting still in this little tiny piece of shit car, but I was making it work.
But it got great gas mileage.
It really did. I think I was probably putting $20 in the gas tank, and I was golden. But my whole goal was, I didn't care about going and living in the dorms and going and having college experience. Like, I wanted to make my money, and I wanted to be secure and do something where I didn't have to rely on anybody else, because I didn't have a farm family. I didn't have.
So you never lived in the dorms or anything?
Never. No, I lived that lifestyle. We had a party town 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
But my goal was just to get my degree and make money and be able to take care of myself. And that's what I did. And luckily they had that program. And I actually graduated with a 3.8, and I graduated with honors. And it's funny because in high school, I think I got a 1.7.
So when it came to high school, I never really paid attention to anything.
Yeah.
I was barely ever there. Like, I was a high school dropout.
Really?
Yeah, I went and got my GED. I was like 3 credits shy of graduating from high school, and they were like, "Hey, you can go to summer school." I'm like, "That's not gonna work for me." And so I went and got my GED, and then I joined the Army.
Okay. I almost did. I think at that time, law enforcement was very competitive, especially in Michigan. And I'm going through college, and I was thinking, what ways can I make myself marketable? Nobody's hiring. And in Michigan, it's different than it is here in Tennessee. In Michigan, you have to fund yourself through the police academy. So you're looking at $5,000-$6,000, which I didn't have.
Right.
And then hopefully once you have that certification, an agency will pick you up. And so there's no
Hopefully.
guarantees.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So the only agency in Michigan at that time that would put you through the academy was Michigan State Police. And all you would ever hear is good luck getting hired by them. Like, that's the premier law enforcement agency in Michigan. And they're different. They're different than, say, Tennessee, whereas Go
They
ahead,
want a
Sal.
clean background. Like, ultimately, like, they want you to
Yeah.
be squeaky clean, and then coming up from a rough neighborhood and rough
Mhm.
upbringing, you're gonna have a lot of history, and especially when they start looking into your background with, like, a big family, I can see I had the
Oh,
same
yeah.
issue.
And they're state police, they're not highway patrol. They had a subset of them called motor carriers, and they did the truck inspections, they
Mhm.
did the highway stuff, and they made like 10 grand less than the troopers. Troopers were state police. And the reason being is because you had Saginaw, you had Flint, you had Detroit, and you had these really big cities that couldn't adequately fund their police departments and a lot of times had really corrupt police departments. So Michigan State Police, with the funding of the state, would be able to go into these cities and be state police. And people would say, you run from them, they're gonna beat your ass.
Yeah, I think certain states are like that. I think
Yeah.
Massachusetts is like that. I think Boston and that. I think that's all state police driven.
So I actually got hired by them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when I graduated college, and most people were like, good luck, good luck. So I'm like, what am I gonna do to make myself marketable? I need to do something. And here with this lack of confidence still that's kind of lingering from childhood, but not realizing on paper, I'm a Hispanic female. I'm 22 years old. I have a bachelor's degree with honors, good work history, kept myself out of trouble. And they picked me up in like 2, 3 months, super quick.
It's
So
awesome.
started their academy. I got married to a guy that I was with in high school, and he joined the army. He didn't really know what he wanted to do, joined the army. And my sister, who lived in Florida at the time, ends up moving to Tennessee, East Tennessee. My mom moves, and he gets stationed at Fort Knox. So it was kind of a contract marriage, really. We'd been together for years and break up, get back together, but
It was a marriage of convenience.
very
Yeah.
much. Very much. I finished my degree, get hired by Michigan State Police, and my whole family basically leaves and moves to East Tennessee, and he goes to Fort Knox. And so I had a decision, and I said, I want to move all over the country. This is what I want to do. It's what I've always wanted to do, but I don't want to be here by myself. And I hate the winter. That's just straight up. I don't want to be anywhere where it's cold and being in the
Love
snow.
winter. Everybody I meet, they're like, I hate snow.
No.
What's wrong with you?
The first day of the police academy, I'm telling you, that was the hardest shit I have ever done. It was a blizzard. You're standing out there in heels, and
You
they're
wear
in
heels at the police academy?
the first day orientation. They have you standing outside, and it's like 10 degrees out, and you're stupid. I'm 20, 21, 22 years old. I have no idea what to expect. So I'm standing outside in these little, whatever JCPenney heels that I got to look presentable, and some slacks and a button up, carrying this big ass suitcase of all of the shit they said I'd need. And I'm slipping, I'm falling, they're screaming at you. You're outside, it's 10 degrees. It was miserable. That was like the worst time in my entire life, no matter all the trauma. It was horrible.
Wow, I quit.
Yeah, so I had a decision, and I was a couple weeks in after they sent him to Fort Knox, and I was like, I want to be close to my family. I kind of always wanted to have a career in South Carolina. That's where my sister wanted to ultimately move with her husband that she'd been with for a long time. So I moved to Fort Knox, and I think maybe 2 months being there, his unit disbanded, and they put him at Campbell. So we get to Campbell, and I said, okay, that's it. Like, this is the only move I'm making. So I'm either working here, I'm working Metro Nashville, but I'm not going back. And that's basically where I've been since.
Metro Nashville sucks.
It does, but I didn't know any better.
Uh.
I didn't know anything when I got here.
So my uncle, actually, he was a police officer for Metro Nashville for all of his career. He was a canine officer there too. Like, the canine training facility is named after him.
Really?
It's the Jimmy D. Anderson Training Field.
No kidding. But you're not from here, though, right?
Yeah, I was born in Vanderbilt. I'm from Nashville.
I had no idea.
I grew up in Smyrna, Tennessee.
No kidding. I had no idea that you were a native. I thought you were from New York.
That's how I know Sal.
Yeah.
Sal and I worked together on a drug team up in New York, and I moved from New York to here. So like I was towards the end of my career where I was I was approaching my year 20, and they were like, "Hey, we need somebody at Campbell." They were like, "You could go because it's close to where." I said, "Where are you going to retire at?" I'm like, "I don't know yet. I don't even know if I want to
Right.
go back to Tennessee." But so I ended up here.
Okay. Everybody
Yeah,
kind of
Ryan
just ends up here.
Yeah. Ryan and I were both, we weren't a native of New York, but we were big fans though. It was pretty nice up
Yeah.
there. I even thought about staying up there, like moving back, honestly.
And where are
Upstate.
you from, Sal?
Originally from California, so don't hold that
Okay.
against me. I claim myself all over now. Like, I'm probably the longest place, or the longest stay I've ever had anywhere is going to be in Arizona. So
Okay.
I defected from California whenever I joined the military, and then
Thank
shortly
God.
thereafter.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
So you ended up here at Clarksville, right?
Yeah.
So how long before you got back into policing at that point?
It was right off the jump. We
Later.
got here, I don't remember what month. It was, I think maybe early 15 or late 14. And I immediately applied to Metro Nashville. I didn't even apply to Clarksville first. So I got here and I was like, oh, Clarksville's too small. Like I want to be, I want to be in the streets. And I'm thinking, Nashville, it's big and I can run and gun. I can do all the ratchet things that I want to do. This is what I want. But I get in their process. And it was so vastly different from Michigan State Police. I went to their PT testing and just listening to the way that they spoke, in Michigan State Police, they did it in a way that made you want to be them. It was like they would tear you down, but they would do it in a way where you're like, man, I want to be like that. I want to be respected like that. They didn't cuss at you. They did yell at you. They did get in your face, but they weren't calling you a dumb motherfucker. They weren't calling you fat. They didn't tear you down that way. They tore you down in a way like your failures is going to be the reason your partner dies. So it hits you differently.
Right.
And when I went to Metro, he's laughing, but I went to Metro Nashville and somebody from their command staff walks in and and I won't lie, I had an issue with kind of the Southern accents. So I get in there.
Shoot fire, boys. Shoot fire.
Yeah.
And I hear this guy from command staff comes in. He's like, you're a fat piece of shit. We're going to tell you you're a fat piece of shit. Meanwhile, he's fat. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't respect this.
Yeah, double standard.
Yeah. So it was a different, they didn't hit on a professional level that I liked. And I was instantly turned off. I passed their PT testing. They weren't as eager about me. And they didn't get on my background as quickly as I would have liked. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I put in my application with Clarksville. And as soon as I did, it's like they called me instantly.
Mhm.
I took their testing, I took the PT and the computer testing, and I scored really well. And they started rolling me in the background.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started with them that Metro then calls me. It's like, hey, we want you to come for an interview. And I'm like, I've been in your process for months and months. And now you're only interested now that another agency.
Somebody else to pick you up.
Yeah. So that kind of sealed the deal for me. It was the professionalism that I saw when I was there. I just was instantly turned off.
Yeah, I did appreciate in the hiring process for Clarksville, it was literally 2-week turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, okay. Like somebody that was willing to invest in me, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to invest back.
I think that's huge.
So you passed on Metro Nashville. You became an officer here. When did you become? Where'd you go to the academy at?
I went to Toledo.
Okay. I went to Arletta.
So they didn't let you. They didn't let you. They didn't let you challenge the post.
No, because I didn't stay for full MSPs. MSPs was 6 months, and I left before it was done. But it was good because typically, if you leave an academy and you go to another one, you'd have to get a waiver. And I don't know if they did it because now I actually work in that unit, and I'm the sergeant over the professional integrity that does hiring for our agency. But even getting a waiver wasn't an issue. But I couldn't challenge it. But it was at least getting into it wasn't an issue, and they pushed right through it, and they got my stuff right from Michigan State Police, which probably helped because it was a very extensive background and got me right in.
How long did you actually serve up there in Michigan?
I can't remember. It was only a couple weeks. It was like week 4.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we were, which is almost half of what Tennessee's is. But in that 4 weeks, it made Toledo a breeze.
Yeah. I would imagine.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is great. I don't have to run up 6 flights. The female dorms at Michigan State Police was 6 flights. So whenever you got smoked or you got in trouble, all the females, we'd have to bypass all the male floors and run all the way back up to the 6th floor and then come down. And they were so strict as to you had to carry all of your stuff in your left hand, your computer and your laptop and your book. Toledo was definitely different, better.
When she said a few minutes ago, we have 2 academies here. There's the Toledo, which is down in Donaldson, Tennessee, outside of Nashville. And then you have Arleta, which is in East Tennessee. It's on a college campus, right? So Toledo's more of a military style. You get yelled at, but
it's a high stress environment.
4 days a week?
Yeah, I think it's 4.5 or 5. You go home on Friday afternoon, you come back on Sunday.
And so all the academies here, you come home on the weekends. But the one in East Tennessee, you got to commute. It's 10 hours a week you're in the car. But because it's at a college campus, it's a little bit more of it's more of a gentleman's course, right? But we get everybody once they find out you went to Arleta instead of Toledo, they're like, it's like they got a chip on their shoulder, but which
why are you mad though?
to a certain.
He said, I got in the back door. We're still in the same room, motherfuckers.
So it's funny. Even like some of the senior command staff here, they asked me when I came back from the academy. They were like, "Hey, how did you feel about the academy?" I was like that versus Toledo. I was like, "Well, I didn't go to Toledo. I heard about Toledo." I was like, "But I would say that it's probably not a good idea to send everybody to a certain academy based upon their hire date. But if you could do it by age bracket, you know what I mean? I would say some new hires that are between the ages of like 22 to 28 may benefit from a Toledo style, because they need that level of discipline and responsibility, so on and so forth. But then you get 40-year-old guys like me that are going to the academy, like, okay, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't need to go get yelled at by a guy that's half my age. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No, absolutely. And I'm sure like when you have an older DI that goes in there and they see the older guy, they're going to be like, they're going to shed some respect on that. They're not going to bust your chops too much.
They busted this guy's chops in Toledo, I'll tell you that. He was 47 years old, and he was right next to me. They put us in alphabetical order. And I felt so bad for this man. He was probably, I'm 5'6", he was probably 5'4", just a small, older guy.
Tiny guy.
And he was so sweet. And he was from some small town in eastern Tennessee. And he had been on the road for a while because they could let him be on the road before they commissioned him. And he couldn't do push-ups,
Oh.
And I was a rocket at that time. I was in stellar shape. I was doing tons of push-ups. And I remember them getting on him. And they're like, when she goes down, you go down. When she gets up, you get up. And they're yelling at him. And he's just falling down. He can't pick himself up.
He's like, damn, Brittany.
I'm like, come on, guy, get up,
So slow down, Brittany, what the fuck?
And I wasn't, but he was kind of my buddy. And every time something would happen, I'd kind of look over at him and we were in it together. But I did feel real bad for him. Yeah, he was older, but they gave him tons of shit.
Damn, that sucks. Did Ye-Man end up making it?
Yeah. Yeah, he made
That's
it all
good.
the way through. He stuck
Good
with
for
it.
him.
That's good.
That's
Love to hear
awesome.
that. If you're a 47-year-old man, then it's never too late.
It was sweet.
So tell us a little bit about your career since you've been on the department here.
So since I got here, I started on patrol like most. I started on 2A days, which is actually where I first met you. I was just a baby rookie. I had no idea anything what I was doing.
That's an interesting story. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I spent my first year on days because after we get out of the academy, they put you at the needs of the department. So I ended up spending a year on that shift without being able to choose where I went. After that first year, my group had 12 people. So we had 12 hires. I think maybe 2 didn't make it. There was about 10 of us and we were very close. Most of us were going to go to a shift 1A nights. So north side of town, busiest district that we have, night shift. For us, we said A squad's the best. So we were going to try to get however many of us on that shift as we could. And essentially half of our group broke up, went B shift, half went A shift, and we stayed tight. So my second year, when I had the choice, I went to 1A nights. I spent a year on 1A nights with my buddies, my crew, my people. We had fun. And then I wanted to diversify a little bit. So I was in District 2. I went to District 1. And I said, I'm going to go to District 3. So then I went to 3 nights. So I spent 3 years on the road. 3 nights had some drama. It had a lot of drama. And I just kind of got over it. So I tested at 3 years in our agency. You can test for investigations. So I tested and I got second. So by October of my 3rd year, I was put into criminal investigations. So I went back up to the north side and I was criminal investigations on night shift. After I got through my training, I worked with, now he's a lieutenant, but we were both night shift detectives at the time. And Lieutenant Coleman, and he's absolutely fantastic. One of the smartest people I've ever met. From the city, knows key players, and just, he will grind. And I learned so much from him, and we had a blast. So him and I just worked night shift as investigators. I did that for about a year. I got pregnant with my twins and went on light duty. And when I went on light duty, they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put you in professional integrity as a background investigator. And I'm like, seriously? Like, are you kidding me? Why can't I stay on my cases? I could stay in the office. So I stayed on the road until I was pretty big, being pregnant with twins, but I'm like 3 months pregnant.
Well, there's 2 humans inside.
Yeah. Well, I'm progressing very quickly. And I remember going to hit a search warrant and I'm wearing like stretchy dress pants and a flowy shirt. And there's like, crackheads running out the back and I'm snagging this girl. And my captain's like, Brittany, I'm not going to tell you have to leave, but I think it's about time for you to go.
Yeah, I would agree.
to go on light duty. So they tell me I'm going to go to professional integrity. I'm not happy about it. And my fiance, we're still together. We've been together like 8 years, 9 years now at this point. But at the time, he's a drug agent. So we're both on call. I'm not from here. He only has his mom here and she's not great. So we're kind of in this alone. We're, we're trying to figure out, we're about to have 2 babies. What are we going to do? We don't have a support system. So I go to professional integrity against my free will. And so I kind of, my mindset changed a little bit while I was over there. I said, this is really important. This is an important job because there are people in this department that I love, that I care about. And this is a very important role of vetting them and making sure that we get good quality people in here. So I worked there until I had the kids, and there was an opening after I got back to criminal investigations off maternity leave, and it's a chief appointed spot. So they said, we have an opening, we need a detective. And looking at everything that was going on, him still being a drug agent, he's also a sniper on the SWAT team. So he's double on call.
Right.
I can't be on call. We have two brand new babies, 2 months old. So I put in for it and I got it. So after that, I became an investigator with professional integrity, doing like background stuff for a couple years. I don't know, that time kind of, it flew by, but also didn't flow by at the same time. And I loved it. But, every day I'm still looking at the CAD, I'm reading reports, and I'm in an office there was 2
Which was easier with Watson, by the way. Just throwing that out.
It really was. I'm in an office with 2 older detectives, been there, done that. They don't care about the road anymore. They're great guys, but they're like, Brittany, we don't care. I'm like, do you know that there was a shooting and so-and-so, and they're in a pursuit, and they got this going on, and they got this house locked down. I'm like, Brittany, we don't care. We don't care. And I'm still going to calls, on my way back from lunch. And so it came to my evaluation, and it was May of, I think, 2022. My sergeant did my eval, and I'll never forget. He said, Brittany, you need to test for sergeant. You need to get back out there because this is killing you. He's like, you still love it. You obviously want to do it. You need to do it. And I was like, I just don't know. I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
With my children now being, 2 or 3. So I go home and I talk to Holden, my fiance. And at this point, luckily, he had been moved to the training division. So he was working 410s.
Yeah, he had a set schedule at that point.
Set schedule, so no longer a drug agent, but still on the SWAT team. And I remember us sitting down, and we're sitting down there at our little 4-seat table with the twins that right there were eating dinner. And I'm like, Livesey was telling me I need a test, and I'm thinking about it. I don't know how to work. I'll just try.
Yeah.
Things that are meant to happen will happen. So testing opened up in, I believe, August. We got our materials, and you get 45 days to study. So I do that. I go through the testing. I pass the testing, and I'm like, okay, well, next step. We go through the oral boards, figure, maybe I did decent. Maybe I don't know. And we get the results. I was number 1. And I was back on the road by October of that same year. And I'm like, okay, well, now we're doing it, and they sent me back up. I actually fought between flex and being a 1A nights sergeant. And I argued with the chief about it being number 1 over seniority, just so I could go back to that shift 1A nights that I was on, which is the shift that you ended up working on, where I spent the next 2 years as a night shift sergeant. So a little bit of everything.
Nights is where it's at.
It really is.
Yeah. Like where the most action.
I'm gonna take it back. Yeah. There's a lot of craziness that happens in District 1. But I'll take it back a little bit to how Brittany and I met. When you were a rookie officer back then.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So when I got here in 2015, I got here in like summer of 15, and I ended up taking over the drug team here. There was really no doubt as to where I was going. And so I jumped on board, and it was the first couple of deals with the task force here, the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And so we flipped an informant, and we had them introduce an undercover, and we had them do the deal in this like little black C-Max, right? This little Ford C-Max is like a hybrid car, right?
Yeah.
And both the informant and the undercover were both in uniform because, our practices, we used to put them in, and nobody thought a cop was going to show, a guy in uniform was going to show up and be a cop, right? So it was one of those scenarios. We had 2 8-balls of coke in the car, and we just done the deal, and I was the close surveillance to the UC car, and somehow this little 16-year-old girl got in between us, and at the stoplight there at 10th and 10th and Madison. I don't know what she was doing, but she rear-ended the undercover car.
Shut the fuck up.
So now I had to call, the task force guys, the other surveillance, they just went back to the warehouse. They're chilling out, and so I had to call for a uniformed patrol to come. And of course, it's Brittany. So she shows up in her little Impala. And so I had to badge her because the plates come back not on file.
Nothing was coming back. I'm like, what in the world?
And so I walk up to her and I badge her, kind of say, hey, look, this is who I am. We just did a deal with the task force guys. And she's like, I got to call my supervisor. I don't think she thought I was legit at first. I think she was
I wouldn't have. Fuck, I've seen you in regular clothes, Ryan. I'm like, You're not a fucking cop.
I don't even know if I knew what to think. I'm brand new. I'm 25.
It's a
I'm
curveball.
like,
That's a
really?
curveball right there. Yeah.
You know, how
Yeah.
do I even put this into the report? I remember being on the phone later after taking pictures of all the documents, talking to the traffic sergeant. Because I call my own sergeant. He's like, I don't know, call traffic sergeant. So I call him and I'm like, what do I even put? I can't even put the actual information. There is no information here.
It's a
we
non-existent
got
vehicle
through it.
on the roadway that got
Yeah.
in an accident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
I was probably just frustrated because I'm like, really, a wreck? For one, you're going to give me a wreck, and then you're going to give me this kind of wreck?
It's a ghost car.
Yeah, ghost cars.
Yeah. How do you put that on?
Meanwhile, the task force
the
guys
state
just
form.
bounced on me like it was their deal.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like,
Jesus.
yeah, we're good. We'll be at the warehouse. Call us if you need us. I'm like, thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
So you guys route all your guys' like police reports, like the crash reports to like the state, right? And like
Yeah.
the state highway patrol, right?
So
that
they
must have
don't
been
work any of them, but they get reported too. So after
To
we
them.
submit our reports and stuff, they get submitted to the state.
So they must have just saw that and they're like, what the fuck is going on with this thing?
Probably.
That's
I
great.
never heard anything from it. So
Okay,
I
that's
was
good.
just, I
That's
was
good.
glad.
Well, I had to request a copy of it because I had to send it to the SAC at the time. Yeah.
Shit.
I was like, man, I think I'm in trouble now. I wasn't even driving the car.
That would happen to you, Ryan. Like the weirdest,
would.
most random fucked up shit will happen, and especially to like somebody that's new as well for you, Brittany.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when like the curveballs come out, and then you reach out to like the elders, and you're like, "Hey, what do I do on this?" And they're like, "I've never received that at all. Like in my 20 years of like law enforcement, I've never had to deal with that at all." And then you're just like, "Well, fuck. I guess we're gonna create history right now."
Kind of
That's always
story of my
weird.
life, my whole career. It's just
Yeah.
similar to what you said to Ryan. It's just kind of dumb shit. Dumb shit happens.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the only option.
So what has been your favorite assignment so far?
Hands down, patrol sergeant. Being a sergeant of 1A Nights was my absolute favorite. What I loved about it, going back to the road, was so much more fun. For one, I'm not obligated to do any of those things, but
Yeah.
I get to. So I don't have to take a report. I don't have to do anything, but I get to be part of every single fun thing that happens. Matter of fact, I have to. That's my role. So I get to go to everything, every shooting, every barricade, every, the complaints. But I don't have to go. I can go to a domestic. I'm not taking the report. But I also get to be there and be involved for all of the things. And then just,
Not as many court days.
no, but I do have them, you
Yeah.
know? And I think I have a DA meeting next week on some stuff, of course, because these guys would always get me pulled into their stuff.
That's how you
And
get.
one of the-
That's how you keep a sergeant from coming onto your scene. You start saying like, "All right," you start mentioning them in your report, and they start getting dragged into your calls. And like,
Well, I never learned, Sal.
Court
That's my
cases.
problem. That's my problem. I never learned.
Well,
I
be
did
like,
it to
"Oh, you-
myself.
as a patrol sergeant, when you go 97, do you have to do a follow-up?
So you're supposed to, and I learned that, the hard way, probably about a year in, where some of them I would do, and I ended up having a partner, Sergeant Josh Smith. He came from the drug unit, and he is one of my absolute favorite people, and he would get on me, he's like, Brittany, you need to document, and he drove me crazy when we first met, but I am so blessed because after I kind of got kicked in the ass from not doing it and, being at PIU, Professional Integrity, and saying, oh, you have circuit court for this thing that you're a sergeant on. And I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't even
What
do a
was it?
follow-up.
yeah, like a supplement report. You mean?
Yeah, I learned very
yeah.
quickly that I needed to do it. And luckily, I've been able to get all my stuff squared away and have my follow-ups. I never learned. Still, I went to all the things. And you could tell me this is like the most clusterfuck of a incident. I'm there. I'm going to figure it
She's
out.
not kidding. Like I've heard stories of like where Brittany wasn't even on the shift, or like something would kick off in District 2. I think I had just finished my FTO and I was solo in District 2 for a period before the bump took effect. So I was on 2A days, and I remember I was out for one day for something. I came back and they were just saying, yeah, like we were at this incident, and Sergeant Hubbard, who was not even on the shift, just shows up. Like she sees a call in the CAD or on the radio, and she's like, yeah, I'm going.
That's kind of typical.
Yeah. Well, but
So
it
I'm
makes you
destined
better.
to be in court.
It makes you a better sergeant, though. Honestly, it's like you're throwing yourself into the mix, into the unknown. You're going to figure things out, and then you're going to be better for it. You're going to have that in your
Yeah.
tool belt.
And that's always been my motto. And I've told people, even when I was an investigator doing backgrounds, when I
Mhm.
had my one-on-ones with my applicants, I would tell them, I'm like, there was one thing I didn't like on patrol. I hated DUIs. And the reason was because I didn't do enough and I wasn't great at them.
Yeah.
We like doing things we're good at. And I said, if I could go back, I would do more. And, the things that my FTOs pushed me into was going to all of the calls, no matter how silly, go to a forgery fraud, go to an animal call, go to a DUI, go to a disturbance call. And so I would tell people that even as a sergeant, even as an investigator, go to everything. Even if it's you feel like it's silly, you feel like it's a waste of your time, go to it and just know you will figure it out. There is no other option. You can't just leave and say, well,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do
'Cause
here. I'm
yeah.
gone.
yeah, the liability's on you. You have to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are there's going to be somebody up above that's dealt with it somewhere, somehow. And that's what you have your chain of command for. They're gonna help you sift through all that stuff. Yeah.
So you were talking a few minutes ago about how, like, when you were in investigations, you had those guys that are like, Brittany, we don't care. So I enjoyed being on patrol, but it's just very hard. Like, I came from a background of 26 years, 20 of which was in investigations. So it was, and I even told Rick Stalder this too, because I see him at church on Sundays. And he was like, "How'd you like it?" I said it was good. I was like, but the hard part for me was, aside from like domestics and good calls that you get, like it's hard to make some of those feel important
Yeah.
given what you've seen before. You know what I mean? It's like, how do I give this much time and attention to it that it deserves when I can't really see its significance and importance anymore, like animal calls and all the bullshit.
So I get what you're saying there, and I think I have a completely different perspective, and it boils down to me. I think it's hard to see the importance. I got that way in criminal investigations. I remember being so pissed off at the hospital. Somebody had just gotten like grazed in the head, zero cooperation, saying, do your fucking job and you'll figure out who shot me. And I'm like, well, how am I going to do my fucking job? And you don't tell me who you were with or,
Yeah.
And I just remember getting so upset, saying like, why am I doing this for people who don't even care? But I think the most important thing for me, like working 1A nights as a sergeant, it was less about the actual calls, because there were calls that tugged my heartstrings that were very important to me. Things that I could relate to, or children calls, or people
Right.
less fortunate, or people struggling that those were very important to me. But what it really was ego of that. I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to figure it
Yeah.
out. So it was less about what the call was actually and about what I put on me
I wouldn't call it
to
ego.
do
I'd
it.
call it character, though.
Yeah, that's it. But it was really less about them and more so about how I felt about myself to do things. And it was fulfilling for me to do it. So even if it was an animal call, if I could figure out where this dog lived, that made me feel good. Just knowing that I did that. That's kind of how I always looked at it. But you had a different burden having to do those things. And I think I had less of that being the sergeant. So it was more so just self-fulfillment, no matter what the call was. And I've always kind of carried that.
Yeah, there was a couple times I called the sergeant, like, "What do I do?" They're like, "I don't really know." Thanks. Figure it out.
Thanks for the help.
Well, if there's no SOP, you're not doing anything wrong, I guess,
Okay, so I'm gonna take you back. You said you watched our podcast, right?
Mhm.
So noticeably you take care of yourself, right? You're an absolute beast. I used to see you in the gym all the time. My daughter she was like, "Who's that girl I ran into you when you were at the Clarksville Athletic Club?"
Yeah, I remember running into you and your
And-
daughter.
And she was like, "Who's the girl you talking to?" I think she followed you on Instagram for a
Mhm.
while. Yeah. And so my daughter always just adored you. But how much do you think physical fitness plays into your role as a police officer, specifically as a female?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. My first year, second year, there were incidents where I'm having people bite me and we're getting all out fights on the side of Providence, people that are high on spice. And
Spice has kind of died.
It
Jesus,
has, and-
man. I can't believe you just dropped Spice right now.
Yeah.
That's a fucking blast from the past.
hey, we're talking 2016, 2017. It was still,
Jesus. Did you guys get
we
any
had
good
those.
drugs out there or what?
Probably not. Probably
I know
not.
some guys.
Meth and fentanyl right now.
It
know
is.
some
It
guys.
is. Now they're just overdosing, but back then, they were
That's funny.
fighting.
That's funny.
But I think it's been huge. I've had my fair share of incidents, but there's also been, I think, a lot of it in just how you carry yourself. And I've seen this. I had a shift 2 years ago that had 6 females on my shift from varying ages, varying levels of physical fitness, varying levels of how they carry themselves, the way they speak. So I got to see it all. And I know how it was for me on patrol. And so I remember walking into Subway my second year, I was on nights. And this young kid, he's maybe 20 years old, is making my sub. And he's like, "Do you have people challenge you a lot because you're a girl?" I said, "No, not really." And that's kind of been standard.
Why do you think they don't?
I think a lot of it is just how I carry myself. For one, I think it's really important to just have confident body language, but also to treat people with respect. So I would go into everything and treat people with respect until it was time not to. Until it was time to go hands-on, I'm not afraid of it. But you're going to tell that from my body language, I'll put you on the ground if I need to, but I'm also going to treat you like
She
a
will.
human being.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you
I
can
believe
relay
it.
that because you can be all talk, and be really insecure in your body and kind of stand here like this, which I've seen with certain people, and they know you're all talk. Or you can be confident in who you are and know that at the end of this, I'm winning. I'm going home no matter what. And I think that mindset just has helped so much. And then just carrying yourself in a way where you look the part, you look physically capable, you're confident, you're not
Did you
backing down.
did you start off that way, or did you have like a coming to Jesus moment where you're like, oh, that was a close call, like I need to step it up?
No, I've always been that way. I think when I was in college, I did an internship. For one, I talked about my mom being scrappy. So
Mhm.
I distinctly remember my
Mom's
mom,
got a six pack.
yeah, whipping
right.
chicks, in Detroit. She's
Hey, I
pulling
don't
the
know if you want
car.
to fight me. My mom has a 6-pack.
She was, and my sister, they were always, I grew up fighting my little brother physically, and I don't know if you were like this, Sal, just if Hispanic families kind of grew up a little different, but we grew up all out fist fighting. So me
Yeah.
and my younger
Yeah.
brother, he was a football player, always a big kid.
We just
We
had a rule
fought.
though. We just had a rule: no hitting in the face. Like if your dad or your mom found out that you
Yeah.
smacked somebody in the face, oh dude, it was over.
Well, see,
It was
my
like,
mom didn't give a shit. There was hitting in the face. She'd say, y'all work it out.
Yeah.
Y'all work it out.
like
And we did, and most of the time it was fighting.
we could fight Ryan, and then the minute that somebody got struck in the face, it was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, we need to back down now.
Because somebody else going to see that later.
Domestics didn't even exist when I was a kid. We were like, what is that? This is family.
I'm glad that wasn't in the background investigation. Like, did you ever commit domestic violence as an adult? Like, as a child, shit, I got fucking tossed around all day long.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was never afraid of confrontation. I don't want to get into it, but I'm going home at the end of the day. So I've always had that mindset. I had the mindset that this is what I love doing. And if at some point something bad happens doing what I love doing, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to, I'm going to do everything I can to go home. But that was tough too, because that completely shifted after having kids. The perspective completely shifts.
Has your level of fitness ever come in clutch in a situation where you were like, oh, thank God I take care of myself?
I'll tell you, my cardio could have been more in clutch in a lot of situations, but there's been a lot of incidents where I've had to, I wouldn't say a close call, but where I've had to wrestle, more so on the ground. And I've kind of dabbled a little bit always in a little bit of MMA. I did a little bit of boxing, just kind of novice type stuff, and kept myself physically fit. But there have been like on the ground tussles where I've been able to not get my gun taken or not get put into something where I could have been really hurt because of it. And that's happened maybe 2 times. I think cardio could have been better. There could have been one foot pursuit I could have won, and that was one when I was actually a sergeant, but we ended up catching him anyways because I dislocated his shoulder. So, strength came into that one.
Yeah. Do you find that you get? Sorry, Ryan.
No, go ahead. Man.
Do you find that women or men fight you more? Is it like one or the other?
I don't know that I've had as many. I don't think I've had a physical confrontation with a female that was my call that I went to. I've had it before where they were fighting with like a male officer and I've assisted, or where they've kind of resisted a little bit, like you're at a bar fight or shooting and, you go to move somebody out and they want to thrash around. But I haven't had any full on, females fight me. The only times that I've had it happen is when it was with a male officer and I've just been helping them with the female. So I think it's been men, but I don't think that there has been a man that's just seen me and been like, I want to fight her because...
Yeah, it's like passive.
So nobody's just kind of bucked you and said, hey, like, I got to fight this.
No.
Just like passive.
What
do you attribute that to?
And that one's kind of hard because I think it's the confidence in how I carry myself. And it may have something to do with the men too. I know that some men challenge really strong men. Some men challenge women. And I think a lot of that just plays into the man. Is it a kind of I don't want to mess with them because, that's a female? Or some men may have an issue where they want to because it's a female, but it's the same thing. I've talked to people like Chevelle Lucas, very, very built guy, and Holden, he's very strong, very built, where they have men challenge them as an ego thing just to see if they can. And I don't, at least thinking back, I don't feel like that has been my experience.
So that's kind of what we talked about on our last episode. We think one of the reasons that we need more women in is because women, even the women officers, are less ego-driven than males. I know a lot of male officers that they show up on scene, and when a couple of my calls, I've had a guy talked into compliance, and then get another officer that shows up there, and he just wants to be an asshole and kind of assert dominance, and then it starts all over again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I've also had female officers show up and be able to talk a guy into straight compliance too. But I think that's because women are less ego-driven than male officers. So
I think it can be. I know there's times where I have had an ego, showing up somewhere and I'm like, no, you're going to do it. And you're going to do it now and I'm going to make you. And they're like, okay, I believe that you will. We're done here. But I do also believe that, at least for me, there's been times that I've used it to my advantage. One, I was in my third year on nights. There was an individual, he had excited delirium. They transported him during the day to the hospital. They found him somewhere, maybe at the co-op. He was incoherent. He was kind of wilding out. They transport him. He's there for a couple hours. And now I'm at work. It's nights. And we get a call that this guy broke the doors to the hospital, pried them apart with his hands, both sets
Jesus.
of double doors. He's in his underwear. He's in whitey tighties,
Hell
and
yeah.
white socks.
Yes.
And this
Yes.
man, he's like
a good
6'2",
time.
240, big old guy. Gets in the ambulance, tries to steal it, is revving the engine, but can't because he doesn't know where the emergency brake is. And he's still kind of in this
Yep.
excited state. So now he's on foot just running somewhere in the middle of the night. We don't know where he is. So they're like, hey, we need y'all to find him.
Right.
So here's little on me, But at this point, I'm still pretty new in my career. I'm like 5'6". I'm like 145 pounds. I'm going behind this business. And I'm driving behind it, and I see this dude. He peeks out behind the dumpster, and oh shit, that's him. He's in the whitey tighties, and you can tell he's just staring. And we lock in, and I'm like, 243 Central. I think I
He's
got him.
79 right now.
Yeah, I think I got him back here. Behind this coffee shop. So I get out, and I'm like, hey, buddy. Trying the best I can to talk to him.
Yeah.
And he's staring, and he starts walking towards me, and he's definitely bigger than me. And I'm like, man. If this goes south, I'm gonna have to kill this guy. There's nothing I can do. This man would physically overpower me in a matter of seconds. Like, trying to keep my distance. I'm trying to talk to him and gauge where is he at mentally. So I'm talking to him, and I'm like, hey, buddy, are you okay? I know you left the hospital, and I'm trying whatever I can. And he's getting closer. Some other units get there, and they kind of keep their distance. They knew from me that this was kind of my thing, that I was pretty decent at talking to people, getting them to do things I needed them to do. And so I'm talking to him. He gets closer, and he's just 1,000-yard stare. He's staring right through me. And I just remember I kept telling him, like, hey, buddy, I want to make sure you're safe. You're safe with me. I got to take you to the hospital, make sure that you're okay. And he's just staring at me. And as soon as other people started getting close, I could tell that he was getting really agitated. So
It's
I'm
that
like,
fight
hey,
or
I'll
flight.
just back up. Let me try to talk to him. Well, I end up getting him to walk to the back of the patrol car, and he reaches out for my hand, and I let this man hold my hand, and I walk him to the back of the patrol car. And I'm like, I'm with you, buddy. You're okay. And he's just, he's staring. We get him over to the hospital. I hold his hand, walk him in, and I just keep reassuring him that he's safe, that I'm here with him. I'll take care of him. I'll make sure he's okay. The other units are trailing behind because at any moment this could go south. And we get him in there, and the nurses, they're running around crazy. They're all uptight, and they're like, we need to strap him to the bed. And I'm like, oh, good Lord.
Well, this is going to go well.
I said, this is not. They're like, we got to get him strapped down because he escaped. He's got some other.
He's a flight risk. Yeah.
Yeah, some mental stuff going on. And I end up telling him, I'm like, hey, we have to strap you down. I will do it. I'll make sure you're okay. He lets me strap each of his limbs to this hospital bed and get him set to where nurses can come in. And that was one instance where I'm like, I don't know if he was looking at me like a mom, sister, girlfriend. I don't care. But I know for a fact because another officer, some bigger gentleman showed up, and he was staring at them, and you could just tell he was getting upset at their presence. So whatever it was, it worked. However he looked at me, it worked. And femininity in that point really helped out, and we did not have to fight him or do anything.
Now, in your early career, did you ever have any calls that you showed up on and you thought you had somebody talked into compliance, and then, of course, your senior male officers show up and they screw everything up for you?
I would say early in my career, no. My first year, I worked with some really good senior, older male officers. FTOs like McLaughlin and Carnegie, Jenkins, a lot of like dudes that just were not ego-driven. They were just really good all-around officers. I think that only became more of a thing working night shift with, people same academy class, the younger males, and and you'd be like, hey, don't come to my call. You're going to cause some problems. You're looking for a fight. Don't come to my call. But early on, not really. I learned a lot from those guys.
That's good. Why do you believe, on our podcast, we talked about the profession of policing being a male-dominant profession. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
And we compare it to the military. Military is a male-dominant force as well. But why do you think that is? Why do you think more women don't come into law enforcement? enforcement?
Oh man, I think there's so much that goes into that. For one, you look at history and just gender roles in general. For one, it takes two incomes to run a household at this point in time anyways.
Yes,
It wasn't like
facts.
that always. It used to be the male was a provider, female stayed at home, raised children. That's not a reality now, but there's still things that we're so tied to that we try to get out of. And I know that I've had many conversations like with Sergeant Smith. He's very religious, great guy, but we have completely different views on things and completely different views about roles and what women should do, what women should not do, and things like that. Different perspectives. But I think, just at least for me, I didn't think I could do this when I was a young girl. So you have generations. I think in the future it may not be this way.
You
I
didn't
think
think it was an option, or you didn't think you could?
I didn't think I could. I think it was a confidence thing. So I think it could boil down to whether, what is their family history like? Is this something that I've had females in the background face whose family didn't want them to do it because that's not something a girl or a woman should do. It's dangerous.
It's not ladylike.
It's not ladylike. And those are things that even if they wanted to do it or passionate about it, how strong are your family ties versus what you want to do? How much you're going to value what your family feels and what they believe opposed to what you feel, what you want to do. I think it's similar to the conflict that I had when I wanted to test for sergeant. I had to think, one glaring thought that I remember talking to my sister about was, if something happens to me and, I die, I did that. I put myself in that situation. I was safe. I was in an office, and if something had happened to me, my kids might not have me because of my choice. And that was really tough for me to kind of overcome because I went from somewhere that was seemingly safe, doing backgrounds, but there was the battle between what is fulfilling for me and what I want to do, balancing with the rest of my life. And I think women feel that a little bit more. And you have moms, and it's a dangerous job, or women that want to become moms. You have family ties, you have history, or maybe the self-confidence of, can I physically do this job? You may have people who don't support them or don't believe that women should do this job because of the physiological differences that there are. So I think there's so many factors, and you wouldn't really know until you kind of talk to each specific one to see what the reasoning is.
So, like with you working in PIU, doing all the background stuff, do you feel that that's an asset in recruiting women into law enforcement?
Recruiting is a mess.
No, but I would imagine if I'm a young lady and I'm considering a career in law enforcement,
Mm.
and like I get my initial interview or whatever the thing is, my initial meeting, I got to meet somebody like you. I'm like, you know what? Here's somebody I could perceive the, yes, this is like, you have the confidence, you have the experience,
Mhm.
like you carry yourself well, you have the character. Like, yes, this is what I want to emulate, and I absolutely, you're a good role model, you're a good steward of the policing profession.
Yeah, where they could see themselves. I think so. There have been, at least when I was an investigator in that unit, they would give me a lot of the female backgrounds, and I enjoyed that. And I would take on an unofficial mentor kind of relationship. And I mean, this, I showed up, I am actually an official mentor with our agency too. And I remember showing up to meet my mentee, and I saw Ryan, even knowing that I know him. I gave my mentee, which is a female, a hug. And I remember looking at Ryan, I said, I don't do hugs for men, but, I hope you do well. And I gave him a handshake. And I think it kind of tickles me because that's just how I am. But for a lot of the females, I do like to speak to females about it. And I did this as a damn criminal investigator, talking to kids less fortunate, whether it be you don't have to be a product of this environment, or talking to females in a recruiting aspect of, you can do this. And I know because I did, just like you don't have to be a product of this home life environment. I know it because I didn't do that. I became something else. It's the same in recruiting.
That's the importance of sharing your story. It's why you're here today.
Yeah, it's just
Because anybody that meets you on the street may not know the background that you came from and why
Yeah.
you're here and how you got here and all the challenges that you had to overcome to get to where you are today.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you brought up your kids and like the discussion you had with your sister.
Yeah.
That's kind of leading me into my next point. How do you feel becoming a parent affected your decisions on the road or being a cop in general?
I think it made me better. It was tough.
Sal, do you remember what Les said?
Yeah, he said that his perspective on law enforcement changed after he became a parent. Totally changed.
Well, I actually wrote it down because it was so good. Les, if you watch this podcast, I'm a shout out to you. But Les said, because I asked him specifically, did having kids affect was being a cop, did that affect how he parented in any way? All the things that he sees and so on and so forth. And he says, no, absolutely not. Like, becoming a parent it influenced how I copped.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
very
it.
accurate.
Yeah.
I think it made me a better cop. And there was one thing that I didn't expect. So going to work, it was hard, working night shift. But I actually got to see my kids, I think, a lot more than I would have if I was on days, just working nights. But I would go to calls with people less fortunate or similar lifestyles that I had growing up. And every day when I would go home, I would just be thankful. I would appreciate the life that I have been able to build with my family, and just so thankful for everything that I have in life. And it would just be overwhelming, to go home.
Right.
You could have the worst experiences at work that day, and you're going home, and you're like, damn, there are people out there whose kids aren't healthy, whose kids aren't happy, who are dealing with stuff, and you get to go home to this life that you created, just thankful every day, and have that ability to help in whichever way that you can,
Right.
and be of service. So I think it's made me definitely a lot better.
Okay.
I think it definitely would have a big impact on how I police. Even as we get older, start realizing that I don't have to do so many foot chases anymore, that my radio can catch up to people. And now that I have a dog, it's a little bit easier too than just pull them out, pull that guy out, and people are like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm not going to run away from that. So I use my assets the older and the wiser I get. But I think you guys can speak on it a little bit better than I can. I think it's fantastic that that you're a strong-willed female in law enforcement, and the fact that you're a sergeant in under 10 years, I think that speaks volumes on you. And that you're able to do the job with the conscious decisions that you do, trying to, I don't know how you say, like trying to make the world a better place. And you're trying to like empathize with these people and these situations. You're not just trying to like make the call go away, but you're actually trying to fix the problem. And I think that's a motherly instinct in there as well. So kudos to you on that.
But you had and when you were talking about your kids, and I remember one particular incident. I ended up having to wrestle a gun away from somebody who was trying to commit suicide. And when I got there on scene, it was one of those things I was not prepared for. I didn't even have a vest on at the time.
Wow.
And I ended up on the ground but I knew in that moment that, all right, my decision could make me where I don't go home that night. But on the same token, I knew that if I didn't act right then, and I had the ability to, like, I was like, my thought that's went in, what's my kids going to think of me if I didn't act? You know what I mean? And so that kind of played into like my decision there. Would I do it again? Probably. But does it definitely heighten your awareness of like, this is a dangerous job. Every day you may not make it home that day. You never know what that day is going to unfold for you.
Absolutely.
So, but now you're a sergeant, right? Now being a sergeant and being a 10-year sergeant, I'm glad you brought that up, being under 10 years. Have you encountered any issues where being a female sergeant where men just either don't respect working under female leadership or anything like that?
I have had one. So typically I haven't had an issue. Going back to working that shift 1A nights, it's a young shift. I don't know if I had 6 females my first year, or that was my second year on that shift. I think it was my second year. I had a couple different co-sergeants. The first time I got there, I had a male co-sergeant. He had been a sergeant for a couple years. I learned a lot from him. We worked so great together. He was on the SWAT team. So he knows my fiance. They work together. And then him and I have this really awesome relationship that we developed being co-sergeants. And I learned so much from him, but I think a lot of it too was how he treated me when I got there. It was the utmost respect. It was value in my beliefs. And we had different roles before. So I was a detective. He wasn't. He had been on patrol for a lot longer than I had. And then I did some backgrounds where I actually did CVSA examinations. It's like a voice stress test. So I had some other different areas that I had experienced and kind of delved into that gave me some different experiences that he had. So we didn't always agree on things, but he always respected my opinion and always respected how I felt about things. And he let me be a sergeant, and the shift followed. So even as people would promote out, become detectives and agents, and you get new people in, it was always him and I together, and it was facilitating these young officers and growing them. And I think, Sal talked about that motherly instinct. It was like we were parents. We were parents to shift. We hold them accountable. Yeah. Me being an investigator and having an investigative mindset, there were officers who really did not like me, kicking their reports back for lack. They just lacked. They didn't have proper information. I don't think they did a thorough investigation. I'm like, go back out there. Go finish it. This is half-assed.
Did you ask any questions?
Yeah, we don't do this. So I
Yeah.
would get on people's asses a lot. I
Yeah.
would do it frequently and I would hold them accountable. But also I would cut up and I would joke around with them as long as there was that baseline of respect that
Yeah.
when it's time for business, we're doing business and we're
Mhm.
working. And I expect you guys to do a good job. I expect you to be the best. I expect you to be thorough. I expect you to do a good job. And I'm going to be right out there with you. I'm going to be on the rifle. I'm going to be calling the shots. I'm going to be on the front lines with you. But I have expectations. And when we're not, we're going to be cutting up. We're a family. We're a team. We have fun. So I never had an issue. There was only one officer. He would kind of give me an attitude, and I could tell he he wanted to do stuff his way. So when I would get on him about stuff, one incident I remember, we're in the sergeant's office, and he was a fill-in as an FTO. Wasn't an FTO, but he was filling in. And he says, "Oh, I have a recruit tonight." And I said, "Okay, well, I told you when you have them, you need to let me know." And he's like, "Well, I'm telling you now." And I said, "Okay, you need to tell me in advance next time." And he's like, "Well, I don't see why it's a big deal." And I said, "I don't care what you feel. I gave you a directive. That's what you need to do. And I don't want to have to be that way, but that's the way it is. I don't give a shit what you feel. I'm your
Mhm.
sergeant. I told you to do something." And for him, if you would give me the chance to explain why, whereas
Versus
I-
the attitude.
versus the
right.
attitude, and the reasoning is that I need a personal information sheet. I need their information that if you guys go get into a car wreck, I need to be able to call their family, go to their house. Where do they live? What's their phone number? Who's their emergency contact? There's information that I need before that person gets in your car. So there are reasons you may not understand, but it was always an attitude.
Is this someone that would have been a junior to you, let's say, like, didn't work with you during your, like, initial startup in the department?
Absolutely. And I think I actually did his background. So we
Okay.
never had issues. I was his background investigator and I ended up being his sergeant. And he just didn't like being told what to do. And I think it made it even worse that it was a female telling him what to do. But this is the same guy that he was hunting a stolen car. I was coming back from the refueling station. He says, "The car's here at the gas station. I think the individual's inside. The car's stolen, and it had evaded from him earlier that day. Now we got the car parked. It's at the gas station." He's like, "I'm pulling in front." Of course, I'm the next closest. So I said, "Hey, I'm there in 30 seconds."
Right.
So I pull in, I block the rear of it. He's already walking into the gas station. So I'm not far behind. I walk in, I look to the left. I see a male. He's got black sweatpants, black hoodie, pulled over his head. He's got like half of his face covered, and he's got his hands in his pockets. It's 3 a.m. Me, him, the clerk, and this guy. He's far across from me, but I look to the left, and that's where I see him. And I don't know if this is parent in me, and you may know this as a dog parent, but the first thing I said, I looked at him, I said, hands out your pockets. But it was, I was like, "Get your hands out your pockets." And he doesn't,
No,
and then he
sir.
starts to make some movements. So we just rush him. We rush him. We throw him up against the wall. He's pulling a gun out of his hoodie pocket. So he's like, he's got a gun. So luckily he was pretty lanky, he was pretty small, but we throw him, we get him down, gun flies, we get him into custody.
It's a high point.
It probably was. It was something not good. It was probably actually some little crappy revolver. I don't remember what it was. But this was when I first got there. So, he knew I was about it. He knew I had his back. He knew. But for whatever reason, I always felt like there was a difference in how he responded to me when I gave him corrective action opposed to the male sergeant.
So did you find that, like, because would you say that 10 years is fast tracking for sergeant?
So I promoted at 7, but there's one that I know he promoted at 5 because you have to be there 4 or 5 years minimum before you have the ability to test. So there's a couple outliers. I think Sergeant Coleman, I think he was maybe at 5. He's now a lieutenant. He was like at 5 or 6 when he became a sergeant. Hurt is now a lieutenant. He was about 5 or 6. I was at 7, and maybe Cunningham.
But do you see anybody that was once your peer, now they're no longer your peers because you
All of them?
Yeah. Do they ever go, well, like, you know what I mean?
I expected it of me. Like, I've always held myself to for one, it's just that I need to progress ever so often. And that's why I love working at an agency like this one, because I've had the opportunity, in different districts, criminal investigations, background investigations, back on the road. I love the road, but I had the opportunity to come back as a sergeant. And that's what I'm meant to do right now. But I like being able to do different. But I think a lot of my people, like from my academy group, say, some of them are canine officers. Some of them now have become sergeants. But I've always expected, like, you're going to do it and you're going to do it quick. So that's just an expectation I've had on myself. I do think it's kind of fast track, but there are a couple people in my peer group who I looked up to when I first got here that have been very similar, like Lieutenant Coleman.
So, like, what are your aspirations? What do you want to be, chief of police one day?
I don't know that it's necessarily about the role. I have very strong points on, what policing should be and what it should not be. And I've told so many people this, it's not about the position. It's about being able to make the most impact on what needs to happen. So I don't care whatever title you give me. Where do I have the ability to make the most impact?
Or where do you think you have the ability to make the most impact?
We'll just have to see. Wherever that is. I don't plan on stopping. I still have 20 years left. I'd passed the lieutenant test. I'm third on the list.
That's
so
awesome.
there's
Congrats.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Jesus.
But
Good for you.
there's one spot, and testing's good for a year, so we'll see. There may be two, and we were right there, a fraction. I think I got a 82 point something. The next was like an 82.7, and then an 83. So we were all
Within margin.
within margins. And the two that beat me, the first one, he's the commander of the TAC team.
Yeah.
So the entire commander of the SWAT team, and then the second guy is the CALIA accreditation manager and writes policy for our department. So I'm not mad at it, but I'm also like, you should have studied a little bit more.
No, that's awesome. I'm
Thank
super
you.
proud of you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So if you were going to offer advice to any females going into law enforcement and to kind of follow in your footsteps, what do you think are the do's and don'ts? Maybe some mistakes that you've made, maybe like what would you offer the advice? Like just steer past this, or don't have an ego coming into this, or maybe stand your ground on certain things.
So actually, this is what I would tell a lot of female applicants, and this it's a little TMI and it may be a little weird, but for one, you need to take yourself seriously. You can cut up, you can have fun, but you have to take yourself seriously. You have to be a respectable person. Don't be pushed around. I told Amanda these things as her mentor. I said, I expect you to be a team player, but she's very sweet. But I told her first on, I said, I expect you to beat all of them.
She did.
And that is my expectation. I was number one in my
Amanda's a
academy
beast.
group. I said, have camaraderie, have fun, but be the best. So just having not making yourself small. I think especially for women, we try to mask, we try to fit in, but just having the confidence to not care if you ruffle feathers or rub people the wrong way, and be the strong person that you are. There are differences. There are qualities that males have and that females have that are different.
We're supposed to be that way, though.
And that's fine. That's great. Embrace that, but don't diminish yourself. And I think the biggest thing too, at least when I got started.
When you say diminish, can you elaborate?
Don't make yourself small to fit in. Don't not speak up about things that bother you just to fit into the group. If you don't like something, speak on it. There was just an example, being in briefing.
Yeah.
If somebody says something that you don't like, speak up.
Right.
Don't be upset about it and harbor that frustration and just laugh at something that is a dig at you or inappropriate because you want to get along. Don't be uncomfortable at your own expense to make other people comfortable.
Yes.
And I think that's something that women face a little bit more, disproportionate.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't sleep around. That's huge. Don't do that. That's the biggest thing. When I got hired, there was other females in this agency, and it's a complete double standard. It is, but it's reality.
Basically.
You sleep around, that's what you're labeled as. And people will tell you, you can be a couple things as a female cop. You can be a bitch or you can be a whore. You got to pick one. And even if you have a bitch exterior, I do. Most people, once they get to know you, they're like, okay, she's good shit. She's pretty cool. But you have to, I think.
I wouldn't say you have a bitch exterior. I think you're just a tough read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do have RBF too most of the time. That's okay.
The
But I think
Hispanic
we
in you.
have to put up a little bit more of a wall than what males do, because there is a double standard, and just understanding that it exists
Mhm.
and determining where you want to fall with that.
So do you think that wall sometimes gets confused for like being badge heavy or cockiness coming in?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I see
I think
that.
it can.
Yeah, I see that sometimes. Sometimes I'll see somebody, a female that's just coming in somewhere, different agencies, and then you just see them hold themselves like really, really, really like hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking in my head, like, you don't have to do that. Like you
You
don't
don't
to.
have to prove anything to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
like,
that's to
exactly.
you guys.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's the way I'm perceiving it at first. And then I'm just like, okay, well, why is she trying to do this? And it's like, now that we have a female, the female perspective here, she can elaborate on it. And definitely, like, I see that point of it where it's like, hey, you have to project strength, and that people aren't going to walk over you. So
Mhm. It's
I
a
do appreciate it.
vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's a vulnerability thing, and it's similar to relationships. There's a wall that you have to put up until there's trust. So I think there was a difference people who were on my shift got a completely different version of me than people on other shifts or people in command staff or people from other agencies.
Yeah, because you had to establish trust.
There's
That
trust.
rapport building and
Mhm.
bonding and team
Yeah.
building. Yeah.
I can say things, they can say things, and there's not that we know the core of each other. We know our values, we know our character. So there is no, you don't have to stress about how something's going to be interpreted or what people will think.
Right.
And we can joke around, we can cut up. But the me that is with another shift or command staff or somebody else is completely different because that hasn't been established.
Yeah.
So there is going to be more of that wall where maybe people are like, oh, she thinks she's this or that, or super closed off, whatever it is. And really, I'm cutting up and briefing, joking with these people and laughing and having fun.
Yeah.
But that's because we've built that trust.
But to Sal's point, like I've seen that before where women,
Or even the
they
tone
just
of the
feel like-
voice changes.
yeah, they just feel like they have to carry this hard persona just to fit in when it's not required. Like,
Mhm.
we don't need that. Like we are accepting of who you are. As long as you possess the same capacity and abilities of doing your job and doing it well, that's all anybody cares about is.
Yeah.
We don't need somebody to come in and be exactly like me or exactly like Sal. We need the diversity.
So I do think it can go too far to one side, where I've had conversations with a couple females that have worked in my shift that I was the sergeant of, and just brought them in and talked to them about that exact thing. It was more so with the community where I've spoken like, hey, look, use who you are to your advantage. You don't need to try to big body people because they're going to look at you
Yeah.
like, who the hell are you? You're 5 foot, 110 pounds. Why are you talking to me crazy? Like, I will kick you out of this room. So I think it can go too far to a point where there's not that understanding. And that's why I talk about the quiet confidence. And that's more so body language of just having, especially with society, having strong, confident body language, but still being who you are, being a female, speaking normally, treating people with respect and dignity. And I think that's kind of the same when you're on a shift of just treating people like people.
Yeah.
And being genuine to who you are.
Yes.
But
Well, where do you think that big body presence comes from?
I like
Do you think
that.
that's
I like
something
that
they've
big body.
adapted? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna write that down. But where do you think
You
that
got
big body
big
presence
body energy.
comes from? Do you think that this is something that they've adapted over
Oh,
time,
yeah,
or do you
I
think
think
somebody
it's-
taught that to them?
I think it's a self-preservation that they tell themselves if, they portray themselves that way that they're not going to get challenged because it's an insecurity. Like,
I think that's what you see on TV. I think that's where people get
Yeah.
a lot of these ideas of like, I need to be, Booker or whatever. What was his name? Like Hooker, TJ Hooker. Yeah,
You're
Yeah.
dating yourself a little bit. Sal.
come on, man. But I think everyone has this idea of like, I remember there's, I'm not gonna say which department, but like when she would show up on scene, she had like Ray-Bans on, like aviators, and like her just demeanor would just like grab the belt, like right here, and the whole
yeah,
time.
that's
like,
a little
and I was
that's a
like,
little cringy, as we
and
say.
I would hear her talk, and then like because I knew her from when she was like 18, and then I saw her grow up and then become a cop later on, like when she was like 24, 25, and her mom worked in the department, and then I remember just hearing her like all her life, and then all of a sudden she gets on scene, and I looked at her and I was like, what the fuck? And then she's like, what? And I was like,
Yeah.
use your real voice right now. And I'm like, who are you? Right? Like, just be
Who
yourself.
hurt you?
Yeah, no, it's like, it's not a game. This isn't a movie. Like, be yourself. You're gonna get more flies with honey. Like, chill.
Absolutely. I think there's so many times just going out to a call where they're like, hey, they want a sergeant. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and I'm going to roll in
Yeah.
there. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
This is who I am. What's going on? Can you explain it to me? And talk to somebody like I would want to be spoken to.
Yeah.
And
Like,
if
know
you
your
want to
cra-
go
like-
sideways, then we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, know your audience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That is huge, just with maybe it's lack of life experience or whatever, but the ability to speak to people the way that they receive information. I think it's completely different.
Yeah.
You could roll up somewhere. You're not going to go to Chapel Street and say, hello, sir. Can I speak to you for a moment?
But there's a way of doing it without being. You can be
Condescending.
assertive, but without being overly just dickish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
And I think some people don't have the life experience.
They
so
don't have
when
the command presence.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when they do it, it's very disingenuous. You can tell that is not who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think
Criminals-
It's
communities
easy to
can
tell when a cop is faking the funk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, criminals would see right through us with that
Yeah.
stuff. I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think I think that's just a recipe for disaster. It's just be yourself. So many times, me just trying to be overly polite has like backfired on me. Where it's just
Mhm.
like, just be myself has honestly just got me a lot further in life.
But I think you
Absolutely.
hit the nail on the head when you said insecurity. I think that
Yeah.
has a lot to do with it. It's their own perception of their own confidence level and their
Mm-hmm.
abilities.
But how do we boost that? How do we boost our confidence?
You got
How
to
do
do that through
we?
training, though.
Yeah,
Like training and mentorship.
yeah,
You have to
absolutely.
just do it.
Like
Yeah, do the work.
I will give kudos to the department here. I think the mentorship program is great, but how often does a mentorship when does it stop? Like, is it post academy? Is it when they go solo? Is it when they?
It's not supposed to. It's
But
just
does
supposed.
it really? Does
It
it in
does.
practice continue?
No, I don't think so.
No. Do you think it should?
I think that's more so on individuals. I think the reason is to be that buffer when you don't have those
Right.
relationships. And I think as you begin your career, you should start to develop some of those relationships, people that you trust or, just kind of mesh with in your agency. I think your mentor should always be there for you. You still have their contact information. There's
Yeah.
no reason they couldn't be, but I don't think as a program it has to be.
No, that's fair. I get that. But I would say, like, for how many females do we were on the department overall?
See, you didn't
Rough-
ask me
rough guess.
statistics.
Rough guess. But do you? Because not all often like new officers. Let's say 5 new female officers get hired this year, and they go out to shifts. Not all of them have a strong female leader that they can work under and emulate.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
think that's the only real driving force behind that question is all right, well, how do we keep them in front of those women leaders with strong character and abilities and capacity?
And I will tell you the hard part too is that not every female who gets hired is going to have the same feelings or character about that. I mean, I give everybody the same chance, especially females. I'm typically more vulnerable with them and take them in, and I want them to grow and to thrive. But there are some that don't want that. They
Just-
don't
They
want.
don't want to be treated differently because they're female.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's that it's competition. They don't want. I'm a girl's girl, but only to chicks who deserve it. If I don't like the cattiness, I don't like I want to uplift women, and we're all going to succeed together. But not everybody's like that. There are women who wish for other women's demise out of jealousy and out of ego. So it's dependent on the individual. There's a couple, and then there's a couple that I can think of that I won't name, but that it's a competition thing that, you can get them in front of strong female leaders, but they don't want that. They prefer a male who they can get attention from. So I have seen that. I have
didn't
seen
say
some
it.
that I've tried to take under my wing that they don't want my attention. They don't give a shit what I have to say. They don't want to be like me. They want to compete with me. So
I think that's an ignorant thing right there. It's like when you could be learning 100%
Yeah.
from how this person climbed to success, like how she did it, how she fought, like what were your steps, what'd you do, what were your mistakes, what were your successes, how do I emulate that? Like instead of looking at it as like a tapestry as to like a history and like how can I follow this? Like people are looking at it like they're like fuck her or like
Yeah,
she thinks she's
jealousy.
too good or something like that. Yeah, it's jealousy, like dude,
I
turn
think
that upside
there's
down, make it
and
work
you
for
can
you.
usually tell. So now I run the PT testing for the department, and I love it when you get like the eager young girl, because that was me. That was me. Me as 22, 23,
Crazy.
24 going, and I'm like, I see female sergeant. I'm like, how'd you get there? What did you do? Where have you been? And I want to know all of the things. How did you get to being that point? Like, I love that. So I love it when that happens. And I love it when they come in and they see, I have 2 female detectives in my office, and then I'm the sergeant. There's more females than men in there now. But I love it when they gravitate and they want to ask questions and they're eager. But you can always tell the ones that show up and they kind of, they're giving you dirty looks and they're kind of mean mugging. And you're like, we could be best buds,
Yeah.
There's
you're not
there's no reason.
Yeah, you're not.
No, there's enough room for success for all of us. And I don't feel less confident because anybody else shows up. I'm confident enough in myself.
I think
That's not
I think,
necessary.
I think that's one of the biggest problems in law enforcement, whether it be females or males, it doesn't matter, is people in higher positions gatekeeping
Yes.
lower people. And it's like, to me, Ryan, you're a fantastic investigator and an amazing human.
Well, thank you.
And if you were to come on my squad and let's say you and I were up for promotion, or if I was a sergeant and you were coming up and I'd be like, hey, like you need a test and you need a test now. And then let's say we're both sergeants or whatever, and a lieutenant spot is coming up and they ask me about you and be like, that motherfucker knows more than I do. And this isn't like, put ego aside, what's going to be best for the department right now? Like play your best players forward. And if I'm keeping somebody down that can possibly elevate us all together, then I need to get the hell out of this spot.
Policing is a team sport. It's not an individual.
Yeah. But I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think you see certain members as they get higher in the rank structure, where it becomes very self-serving. And what can I do to make myself look good? What can I do to make me look more marketable for the next position? That is something that really irks me. And that's when I talk about, I don't know where I want to be, but it is where I can have influence on what is the
Yeah.
core of this? Why do we do this? We could
Yeah.
do other things for money
Yeah.
at the end
I
of the
mean,
day.
Brittany, it sounds like you're a completely squared away person and an officer as well, and a sergeant.
Thank you.
But how amazing would it be if you can pass that influence up and then start creating your duplicates, and
Right.
start
Yeah.
creating that and saying like, I think that's the biggest attribute right there. Like that could be like one of the biggest things in the whole world. It's like there are great leaders up there and they might still be gatekeeping. And it's like, dude, like you have the opportunity to change things right now in your position. And I think a lot of the good leaders see that gatekeeping and then they end up just checking out early.
Yeah.
So if I have anything to say for you, it's keep on that fight. And maybe your position is to elevate everything, everyone around you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I understand being ambitious and like trying to get promoted, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like too many people just try to get promoted just for the sake of the rank
Rank.
or position, but that's the end state for them. I want to get promoted, but the follow through is not there. Okay, how do I want to perform when I get promoted? What changes do I want to affect? How am I going to do that? How do I want to lead?
And what is the point? What is your purpose for doing it? And that's why being a patrol sergeant is my absolute favorite. Having young officers, and that's what it's not just the calls you go to or feeling like the calls are important. It's going through this with your team, with your people, and seeing these young officers who start out, and they're taking reports for harassment over the phone with zero evidence and, people's word. And you're like, what are you doing? And going into this officer who's writing a very articulate report on an aggravated assault and doing an investigation and putting forth a good case for detectives, and just seeing their transformation in who they are and how seriously they view themselves. Or I distinctly remember Officer Perez, we worked a shooting and the hospital is in a different district. We had one victim, another victim showed up to the hospital. She had to go over to that district. And she comes back, and we're maybe in our second year of working as a team. Most of the people on the shift stayed. But she comes back and she's griping and she's bitching. She's like, they were doing this and they were all over the place. And, they're starting to do this and they weren't doing it. And they weren't squared away. And they were letting him run his mouth. And they didn't get him in cuffs and get him in a car. And I'm kind of smiling. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, you realize like that's how we were before we became a team. You guys were the same. You guys are doing the same new stuff, same new rookie shit, until we became a team, learned each other, learned what people are good at, what they needed to improve on. And then it was like we were a little forced, but it was really funny for me. And I kind of had to check her where I'm like, you
were there too.
You were there too. You did the same thing. But having that influence and watching people grow into good officers is so fulfilling. And that's that's my favorite thing.
And how's that going to look to your superiors, the echelon above you, when you're developing your entire crew around you and everyone's just being elevated because of it? Like it's going to just shine upon you.
Well, yeah.
I think that's very addictive. People pick up on that and then want to be a part of that, I'm sure.
I can see you doing that as a lieutenant though too.
Yeah, I'd probably be told to stay in the office a little more. Even Officer Lex, he mess with me all the time. He's like, Sarge, you need to stay your ass in the office.
No.
Got a new Durango, and they're like, you got too many miles on it. You need to stay.
I got some lieutenants that'll get out there and just make shit happen too. And then you show up on scene and you're like, hey, you want me to take this wreck? And it's like, this is my DUI. Get away from me. And I'm like, oh shit, really? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
There
I
are
love
some
that.
leaders out there that they only pop up on the radio when they want to be heard, but they never show up at a call.
Right.
The only time you see them is in briefing. But I don't foresee that in you at all.
No, some of my role models, and he was kind of a peer. We worked together, but like Lieutenant Coleman, I remember after I was a night shift sergeant, I became a flex sergeant in District 3. Like when you came to 1A nights and I had left, we were going to a call. It was in Kentucky. And they said that this individual had like a big butcher knife. He had slit his throat or his wrist, somewhere on his body. He was bleeding a lot. He was at the rest area. Well, they start pinging his phone and they find out that it's in Kentucky. Well, Christian County is going to take forever to get there. Yeah. And I'm coming in. I was noon to midnight. That was my shift. So it's like 11:55. I'm on the interstate. Like, well, I'm at the 8 right now. It's not going to take me but a couple minutes to get up here into Kentucky. So Lieutenant Coleman, and he's one of my good friends, but he was my lieutenant at the time. So I hear the day shift sergeants, they're on the radio and they're like, well, notify Christian County and yada yada. And so I call Lieutenant Coleman and I said, hey, I'm going. I was like, I get that it's Kentucky. He's like, I'm not far behind you. He was coming in at noon that day too. He was on the interstate as well. And he's like, yeah, I'm not far behind you. And we're doing this all off the radio, so this conversation. And I hear, day shift, and they're saying something about, Signal 9, don't go to that. Medics can go. They'll send Christian County, whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm going. So I go, and there was actually a day shift lieutenant too who was on the radio. I get there. He doesn't have the knife anymore. Ambulance had already picked him up and put him in the damn ambulance, which is kind of insane. You don't ever hear of them doing that. But he was bleeding. Exactly. They did. And I'm in Kentucky, and I found the knife. He was bleeding quite a bit. EMS had already taken care of it before I got there. But instead of focusing on liability or being in a different state or anything else that other people are so concerned about, or getting on the radio to say do or don't do this, I'm just going to go and we'll figure it out from there. And I remember keying up that I'm there, and dispatch is asking if I want status. And whoever the day shift lieutenant was initially telling them not to go. And now she has a sergeant who just went. And she's like, yeah, 10-4, she needs status. Give her status. And I'm like, Central, he's already in the ambulance. We're good. But my lieutenant shows up, and I'm like, hey, if you get heat from your, the other lieutenant, because he was a newer lieutenant at the time, and the other person was a senior lieutenant. So I said, if you get heat, sorry.
That's the thing you see with new leaders, right?
Yeah.
When they promote to sergeant, when they promote to lieutenant, or whatever their position may be, you see a lot of people that they're very risk averse initially, because they're like, okay, I don't want to make decisions that are going to get me fired.
Well, it's because they don't know how to make the decisions. They don't know what so everything is CYA. Everything is CYA.
But like, I think you just need to every once in a while, you gotta fire off and make that hasty decision.
Yeah.
Like, the hasty decisions are what saves people's lives. So you can't be so risk averse all the time to where nothing ever gets done. But you see it a lot.
That was one thing that I decided when I knew that I was going back to the road. I said, I will never be the one that doesn't make decisions. And when I make the decision, I'm just going to stand by it.
Stand on it.
It is what it is. I'm going to stand on business. And that's worked for me. And luckily in patrol, I had some really good sergeants. I had really good sergeants who were the same way. Some old school, like Sergeant Tenery, Sergeant Gibbons. And these were old school guys, like ripping people out of cars and just, TAC team type guys, just doing work, doing like traditional old school cop work, getting after it. And that's what I knew. And I said, that's me. It allowed me to be me all throughout my career. And that's the type of sergeant I said, that's who I'm going to be. I will make a decision. I'll stand by it. And fortunately, especially being in District 1, I had a lieutenant that let me. He let us be sergeants. And sometimes my co-sergeant and he'd be like, no, Brittany, that's too risky. He was a little more so on the side of liability, cover your ass type thing. Sometimes we'd have some disagreements and now we joke about him. But I'm like, what does the law say? Does the law say I can do it? I'm going to do it. I don't care if they're going to prosecute it or not. Does law say that I can make an arrest on this? Let's do it. And that's just how I've always worked.
Oh, that's badass. I like that. I like that a lot. I think we need more of that out there, Ryan. I think that just shows your confidence. It's like, hey, well, push comes to shove, a decision needs to be made. And if life is on the line right now, like, hey, I'll face the music later on. But I'm going to make my decisions, based on the precedence of the call, like what's most important. And if it's life, like, hey, I'll deal with the music later.
And I think that's one thing that is the most important to me, because there are cops who are far surpassing me in their knowledge. They're drug agents that can do some things that have so much experience that I never had, or, writing search warrants and searching houses, and just their legal knowledge is, up here, and people that I highly respect and really look up to. But when it comes down to it, and I've had this conversation with like Sergeant Smith, I said, what I believe makes a good cop is not how many felony arrests they get. It's not how many citations they write. It's not how many arrests they get. It is how thorough they do their job. And I don't care if it's somebody steals a pair of shoes or somebody does a shooting. Are they doing their due diligence for both? And do they have the courage that when there's a shooting at a school, that no matter what, I don't give a damn who you are, that you're going to go in. Yeah. And as scary as that is, you're not standing on a corner. I said, that's what it takes to be a good cop to me. Do you have the courage to go into that building and save people's babies when it counts? Because I know I do. Even as administrator, I keep my rifle. I still qualify. I'm at work during the day. If shit pops off during the day, I may die saving other people's babies, but that's what I'm willing to do. And as scary as that'll be, That's what makes a good cop is heart. And I don't give a damn how good you are at other things. Yeah, there are times that, I don't know, we're going to do the shooting. I know we can lock this scene down. We can make it secure. We can do this. We can lock down a perimeter and get a barricade, and I'll get on my gun. But there's investigative things that I haven't done. There's, experiences that I haven't had, but we'll figure it out. We'll get those people that do.
I mean, you have to respond. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. Like, you have to have that inner drive to, hey, this is happening right now. I don't get to sit and wait for guidance. I have
Yes.
to act on this.
And that is what I'm 100% confident in, is that no matter what, I'm going to react to it. I'm going to deal with it. But I know that there's greater investigators. There's
Whether or not my actions are the best choice,
Right.
we can quarterback that later, but I
Yeah.
have to make decisions and I have to move now.
Yes.
Well, that's the leader's
Exactly.
mentality, 100%. Like, just because you know the law, the statutes back and forth, doesn't mean that you're a great leader. Like, you might know everything there is to know about being a cop, but it just means that you're a good cop by yourself.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of cops that, like me, like I don't know every law
Right.
back and forth, but I know what's against the law. I don't know what's right and what's wrong. And if it's a decision where it's like, is this against the law or is this a crime? Should I arrest right now? Give me a second. Lock this down
Right,
real fast.
you'll find
Let me
it.
look this up. I'm going to find this. You guess what? I'm going to find the answer real quick.
Mhm.
But if you don't know the law, don't push it. But
Right.
it doesn't mean that you're shit for not knowing it.
Mhm.
Because I've known a lot of great leaders that didn't know everything, but they were able to make decisions when the time come, like when the time would come.
And coming up, I've saw a lot of leaders too who only aspired to be like other leaders, or they only respected other leaders that were then their peers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've never been the smartest guy in the room. I'm an idiot most of the time, even when I was in a leadership capacity. But I knew to lean on my team because there was going to be certain things that I'm not good at that
Oh,
they
yeah.
are good at. So if you're good at crime scene photography, or you're good at collecting evidence, if you're good at interviews and interrogation, if you're good at working undercover, I'm going to capitalize on your strengths, but also know your weaknesses too. So I don't employ you in that facet. It's just team building 101. You know what I mean? But that's how you become. And I respected everybody. Like, all of our accolades, they weren't mine; they were yours.
Right.
100%.
So we are approaching our 2-hour mark. We're at 1 hour and 50 minutes. So is there any last minute thing you would like to say about women in law enforcement? Was there anything that you saw on our podcast that you completely disagreed with? Or?
Well, see, I didn't take notes.
Oh, okay.
I watched it, but I didn't take notes. I think
Well,
you
nothing
guys did a
stood
good
out then.
job.
Nothing stood out too hard.
No, nothing stood out. I think it's just so loaded in that every person is going to be different. Every female is going to be different. My experience is not everybody else's experience. It's something we talk about all the time. How do we recruit? How do we get more females? How do we gain the interest? And I think it goes back to so many things that are deeper than what we can't even control. And it's self-confidence, maybe lack of appropriate role models that they see to put themselves in that person's shoes to realize, hey, I can do this. So there's so many different things that it could be that we don't have an answer to. But if you are looking to become a female in law enforcement, you know who to look for. It's me, and come see me.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. Come see her.
It's literally my job.
So, Brittany, we thank you for being on the episode today. It was
Absolutely.
an honor to host you here. We didn't get you a cig, but you do get to walk away with a case of white monsters. But we
Heck yeah.
appreciate you having you on. This is officially our double-digit episode. This is episode 10. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, this is what, month 3, Sal, and we're on episode 10.
No kidding.
Yeah, pretty quick.
That's really awesome.
But we appreciate having you on. Sal, do you have any final remarks?
I'm just pretty upset that we don't have you out here. I wish there was more people like you, not just a woman, but more people just like you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in closing out the episode, again, thank you for all of you who have watched this episode. So like and subscribe. Any of the content that we have, please like our Instagram page too. I'll publish some reels, and this will go live at some point next week. Also, next week, you can be looking for the episode.
Awesome.
Are you okay if we tag you in it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Other than that, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we love you, fam.
All right, guys. See you later.
See ya.